Hi again. So for Chapter 8, we're going to try and be as brief as possible. Not because this isn't an interesting subject or there's not a lot to talk about, but because we've covered some of the theoretical concerns in our last chapter. We'll talk a little bit more about theory later on at the end of this chapter, but I want to focus just on the case study of North and Central America for domestication and the Neolithic Revolution. We've looked at the Middle East, and we looked at the spread, the diffusion of domestication of plant and animal species, and also the theoretical concerns about what that does to people socially, and the spread of that into Europe and other places. Today we're going to look at another location where an independent invention of agriculture took place, and this is in the New World. It's unrelated to the developments that we've talked about already. It's an independent invention of agriculture. This was something that in Gordon Child's time, this was not really very well accepted, that things could be done more than once. But now we know that that's to be true because we have the evidence of it being developed at a different time, and there's no evidence for any sort of contact or exchange between the Middle East and Central America, where we have a domestication of other plants. Also, it seems to have taken its own shape and form and spread in its own way. And very importantly, it's based upon the indigenous plants that were native to that part of the world. So we don't find wheat and barley domesticated in Central America because the wild precursors didn't exist there. Other forms of grasses, we're going to look at the wild precursor, teosinte, and how that was the wild precursor for the later domesticated form of that we call maize, or corn. But also things like beans and squash were also domesticated based on wild precursors that existed in that location. So this was humans using the native plants, animals that were local to that area, and undergoing a similar social development. So we're going to look at how that took place, in another time, and on another cultural trajectory. And we'll look at how this impacted the societies, and we'll be using the term archaic. That's a period term that we use for societies in the southwest of the United States and the north part of Mexico. And we'll also look about how this adoption of domestication of plants spread and diffused. So just like we saw in the Middle East, it was adopted first in the Middle East, but then spread into places like Europe, where we see the linear band ceramic. We're going to see a similar sort of impact that moves through into the eastern part of North America and what that does to societies. It actually, once again, it requires a reconfiguration of how you organize yourselves. If you are talking about property, you're talking about surviving on the land and devoting all of your energy to one type of plant food, means you no longer have the option to go traveling around and invading other people's territories. So you've got to negotiate how you're going to deal with this new concept of territoriality and property and home. And so we're going to see, in particular, the mound builder cultures of the Adena and Hopewell, and some of the increasingly complex social organization that they had. So these are the learning objectives we're going to have today. And so I'll stop right there, and then we'll come right back and we'll start looking into the evidence from North America.